Welcome to As I Live and Grieve, a podcast that tells the truth about how hard this is. We're glad you joined us today. We know how hard it is to lose someone you love and how well-intentioned friends and family try so hard to comfort us. We created this podcast to provide you with comfort, knowledge, and support. We are grief advocates, not professionals, not licensed therapists. We are you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back again to another episode of As I Live and Grieve. You know this part of the conversation. It's where I tell you I have a really great guest, but you know what? It's always true. Today with me is Marie Scott. Hi, Marie. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Kathy. My pleasure.
Oh, thanks so much. Marie, before we get started on our topic for the day, would you just give our listeners a bit of your background, please?
Sure. My late husband of 30 years, William David Scott, was a retired captain in the fire department. And he took his last breath in my arms on April 15th, 2018. It was simultaneously the most beautiful moment of my life and the most devastating. Cancer was like a bulldozer, just wreaking havoc in its path.
Yes.
Every single thing of my life as I knew it changed. And I had spent half my life with this man.
Right.
And navigating the world alone, even trying to get out of the closet, my favorite spot to have a meltdown in the walk-in closet, it was devastating. And that's over 5 years now. And it's been an amazing health transformation for me, as well as a life transformation. But I do believe that until you can find new purpose in life, you'll stay stuck. You'll stay stuck and grieve. And that's the beginning of my story and my transformation.
Yeah, Marie and I lost our spouses just about a month apart, actually. And it struck Marie as we were getting acquainted that the timing of that was really unique. So I know, and when you describe the last moment, the last breath is beautiful and devastating, I also relate to that because I was with Tom as he took his last breath. Did I know it was his last breath? No, not quite. But I knew that day it was going to be his last breath. I knew that. And I remember the nurses, and of course, everybody says hearing is the last sense to go. So feel free to talk to him. And all I could tell him that particular morning was, Tom, I know you're suffering. Even though they give you medications, I know you're suffering. But probably because of your background, he was military, of course. Probably because of your background, the hardest thing for you is that you're worried about me. So please know I am okay. I've prepared myself. Everything is in order. You are free to go. I'm okay. I'm okay. You did a good job of preparing the way for me. And about at that moment, he took his last breath. Later, it dawned on me, he always kind of teased me for always having the last word. And I thought, even then, I had the last word. Yeah. But that particular memory is how I can talk about his last breath, not break down in tears anymore, because that little thing will make me smile. And that makes that last moment beautiful in my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Kathy, you had 8 months.
Right.
If I recall, and I had 6 months, and it was almost to the day.
Yeah.
And now with all the, friends around us who have cancer, they stop giving that diagnosis.
Sure they do.
They no longer say it's going to be 6 months, because it was almost to the day. And we had no idea it was going to happen that morning. And Kathy, the same thing. I remember whispering in Dave's ear, "It's okay, honey. I'll be all right."
Yeah. But I think, well, of course, but I think they need that reassurance.
Yes.
They need to, we actually don't know at any given moment how we're going to be. We really don't. Now, I remember, again, Tom, probably the biggest thing I remember about Tom is his military background. He was retired U.S. Army. He fought in Vietnam as a combat medic. He was military through and through. Had he not had to take a medical discharge, he probably would have served in the Army until the day he died. He was that thoroughly Army. His kids were brought up in the Army way and everything. And I rebelled against it, but I did kind of learn the Army way. But with all of his brothers and sisters, he was in a local chapter of Vietnam Veterans of America. They talked a lot about survivor skills. So I fully understood how the military would have survivor's guilt if they were fighting in combat and their comrade next to them or several died. They would have that survivor's guilt that it should have been them, it should have been them, it should have been them. I never connected survivor's guilt with widowhood until I became a widow. Mm-hmm. And then I was on my way after I said my goodbyes and everything, and I kind of turned Tom over to medical staff to prepare him for the final parting, if you will. He was at a veterans facility, and they had a special ceremony. I could not stay for that. But I left, and I remember I was on my way to the car in the parking lot, and all of a sudden it hit me, and I just smiled because I thought, I'm so glad that's over. And then as quickly as I smiled, it was like I got blindsided, hit across the side of the head. What are you talking about? Of course you're not happy that it's over. Mm-hmm. And I started to feel this whole thing. What could I have done to make him live longer? You know, this, that, the other thing. And later, of course, I realized that's survivor's guilt. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that, Marie. How did survivor's guilt hit you?
You know, Kathy, in my coaching, it's been 3 years now coaching, I hear so many stories about widows who it seems like we all have that thought. I just want to die.
Yeah.
I just want to die and be with. And then you shake yourself out of it. But there are some who don't ever get out of that feeling of, you know, my life is over.
Right.
And I'll never forget, it was about maybe 8 months later. I'll never forget the first time I laughed out loud. Oh. And I had to do a double take. I thought, what is that noise? And I realized it was the guilt of laughing by myself.
Right.
When he wasn't by my side laughing. And we,
right.
30 years of laughter and joy. Mm-hmm. And it was the guilt of him not being by my side. And that really took me aback. And that was a defining moment in my grief journey.
Yeah. What did you do about it?
So I realized at that moment, Dave spent a lot of time worrying about me embracing life again. Mm-hmm. And he told his friends, he goes, make sure she's all right, make sure she's all right. But it took a long time. But you talk about survivor's guilt. I went back to school to become a functional medicine certified health coach because I knew there was a link between food and cancer. And I knew there was a link between food and Alzheimer's. And that's what my mom passed away with in 2018 as well. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to school thinking I would learn more about nutrition because I knew I couldn't save Dave, but maybe I could save myself.
Okay.
And that began my life transformation and finding new purpose, helping other widows and widowers realize that life isn't, you're still on this earth for a reason. Mm-hmm. And you have to find that reason and embrace it. And get yourself back into the world of the living instead of wishing you were dead. Because if that's the case, you can't help somebody like that.
Right.
But if somebody's starting to look around and seeing the light again, then that's where, you know, you can really help coach them mm-hmm. into, you know, self-care, laughing again, and finding new purpose.
Yeah. Now, listeners didn't see, of course, Marie didn't see either, but a light bulb just went on over my head. Even at this stage in my grief, and really, I mean, I've grieved for many years, although I didn't know it probably for the first 2 or 3 decades, that's what I was doing. But you said something about finding a new purpose. I remember telling my daughter Stephanie one day, she was checking on me all the time. I was very fortunate. She only lived about 10 miles away from me. And she's really my best friend. And she was checking on me, asking everything. I said, you know, I feel very awkward right now. I feel like I'm having to redefine myself as a person. I always had an identity and I knew who I was and I was comfortable. But now I feel like I have to be somebody else, but I don't know who that is or what that is yet. But when you said finding purpose, that's the key, because it wasn't until I started the podcast that I really felt like I was finally moving forward. I finally had something else that not only piqued my curiosity, but was helping me. It was helping me heal. It was helping me grow, finding purpose. So how do we go from survivor's guilt to finding purpose? Are there cues? Are there things that we whisper to ourselves that we need to go all of a sudden, that's it? What happens?
What happened for me was, I never dreamed. I was in technology for 30 years. I had great career traveling the world at a very large technology company. So I never dreamed that I'd become an author. And the way that happened was I started writing a journal and reliving memories, because Dave and I had an incredible life. He retired at 50 from the fire department and became my traveling companion. Oh. We had no kids, no pets, fake plants. So we would just rock and load. And we'd hit the road and drive from South Carolina, where we spent 20 glorious years of his retirement, and just hit the road for a couple months.
Nice.
And we drive all the way up to Toronto, see Mom in Rochester, and go to Toronto. I would do business with my customers up and down the coast, and it was awesome. It was a great way to have great adventures. And so when Dave died, it was like half of me was ripped out of my life. Yeah. It's like there's nothing. It was wild. So going back to school, becoming an author we always joked about how we always wanted to write a book. We were going to write a book on relationships, and everybody, I think, has a book in their head.
Yes.
So this journal that I started keeping in my Post-it notes and napkins from airplanes, and I'd be really reliving memories and smiling again. And I said, one day I was meditating, and I said, you know what? There's a book in here. And another time, the 12 chapters came to me. And for me, that was finding new purpose.
Yes.
And wow, I can do this. I can, take this to completion. And then I remember after I healed my health, I got a request to become a health coach, functional medicine certified health coach. I thought, yeah, that's right up my alley. I love to teach. I love to give back. And so that helped transform. So now when I teach the workshops on the 7 steps to healing, I get to the section on discover new purpose. And I talk about, what hobbies did you used to have? And I just finished a retreat up here in Maine. It was amazing. Beautiful, beautiful 7 days with 2 beautiful women. And we started talking about, what do you like to do? One was, I like kayaking. So I said, get into a group that likes kayaking. It's a great way to meet people. You don't have to go online, but rediscover your hobbies. And I was coaching another woman who talked about the same thing. Her husband never wanted to get into kayaking, but she did. She's in Florida. So just finding old hobbies, maybe take a course, start to re-examine, as you said, who you are, because you're not the same person.
No, exactly right. And I want to come back to this information, because I'm finding it's like little breadcrumbs in all of your comments that are really striking me. And you know them already, because I know you have 7 steps to healing. But one of the things women are really, really good at, and everybody listen closely, it's saying, what if? What if I hadn't driven this way? Would I have avoided this accident? Would I have missed a traffic jam? When our spouses die, it's the what ifs. What if I'd really, really pushed him to go to the doctor instead of letting him say to me, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. It's all those what ifs. Those feed our survivor's guilt. Now, what I heard you say when you were talking about finding your purpose and everything is that you found purpose doing normal, routine, daily tasks. So there's a gap here. Getting from not just the survivor's guilt, but that particular phase of grieving. Sometimes people will call it stuck on the couch mode. They'll call it a variety of other things, stuck in the corner sobbing, or can't get out of bed and even take a shower thing. What are some of the tips maybe to turn that survivor's guilt into focusing daily routine? And I know self-care is involved, and there's a whole bunch involved in that. But do you have any tips or suggestions for women that are still stuck so that they can start to maybe cue their mind to think differently?
Yes. For me, it was getting my smile back and talking about healthy relationships and making sure you are surrounded with positive people. Give your funny friend a call. We all have those friends that, bring the silly out of us.
Right.
And surrounding yourself with people that make you smile and laugh and appreciate life is key. And that's also one of the steps. Unsubscribe to negative friends and family. We all have them. That was a big tip for me to get over survivor's guilt for sure, but also surround myself with positive people that encouraged me to, reinvent myself. And they still by my side every step of the way. My widow friends back in South Carolina and my family still in Rochester. It's like they're just so supportive of this new person I've become. I think they get a kick out of saying, yeah, my sister wrote a book and it's just very rewarding. It's very rewarding.
Yeah. Family does love to say, oh, this is my sister. She wrote a book. And they don't write the book themselves, but they're very happy to say that they know they personally are tied to an author. They do love that. In other words, to get from survivor's guilt, to get from stuck on the couch, sobbing in the corner, can't get out of bed, you've got to work a little. You've got to think about it. You've got to turn your mind around. You mentioned positivity. At one point in my life, Tom was still with me at this point, but I was just so tired of all the negativity around me. It was with people. I was working a part-time job at the time. It was there in the office. It was with friends I would go out with. It was people I would talk with online and everything. So much negativity. Goodness, Facebook is full of it, if nothing else, that I made a concerted effort to get rid of negativity in my life. My first exercise was to go 24 hours without saying no, not, never, all of those negative words, to really try to do that, and to also avoid talking negatively about anyone or anything else. I would try to check myself. That was a fun exercise because I caught myself all the time, and I thought, well, I'm a negative Nelly myself. So I started reading some books and changing that. And finally, I got to a point where I thought, well, I got rid of all this negativity except for one thing. And that, unfortunately, was my husband. So because he was so negative. So he and I worked on it together before he died as well. So I still had all that positivity with me. I just had to kind of pull it back out because it got submerged for a while in all my grief. Once I pulled it out, though, once I started thinking of forward instead of stuck in the moment, things started to change for me. I started first to take better care of myself. The first thing I did was go out and get a pedicure. I didn't have my first pedicure in my life until I was in my 60s. And once I found that, I thought, this is the most pampering, it was great. But ladies, gentlemen, you have to work. You have to make up your mind. And usually, for me, what happens is deep inside you at some point, you utter, think, verbalize, whatever, but you hear yourself say, I don't want to live like this anymore. That's your key. That's when you have to realize that your tough part of grief is time to turn that around. Does that resonate with you, Marie?
It absolutely does, Kathy. It was about a year and a half for me after Dave died that I kind of raised my head and saw the light and rays of sunshine and, walked outside, I saw the sun again and just little things that make you happy that you're alive and the sobbing stopped. And that was the biggest thing. I mean, Joyce Brothers in her book said, a weeping widow is about as popular as the case of the flu.
Oh, I love that.
So, but it made me feel so good that to be able to breathe and laugh and find joy in the little things like cooking dinner for myself and cooking for friends.
Right.
And community is so important. Being with friends and sharing a Valentine's Day, the first one, and cooking for them instead of Dave was emotional, but very healing. But about a year and a half, I started looking up and saying, I'm going to live. And I packed up my car and went to Florida for a couple months. Mm-hmm. And I thought, there was nothing left in South Carolina. It was couples and families and, there's nothing really, no activities even for a single person. Mm-hmm. And Dave and I looked at moving to Florida anyway for like 10 years. And so I packed up and went to the Gulf Coast and landed in Sarasota. Just had a beautiful month on the beach. I was writing every day, and that's where I actually finished the book in Florida.
Nice.
So, just, getting over and wanting to embrace life again. I say that so often.
Yeah.
Just wanting to embrace life again, no matter what form that was going to take. Because I was a totally different person with new purpose.
Right. Yeah. It's work. Grief is work. It really is. Especially to kind of turn things around. And, it comes back, for me, survivor's guilt, I think, plays a larger part than many people think. because it's insidious. It just kind of sneaks in there, all these little comments and everything. Do you feel, thinking about survivor's guilt, is it worse for someone who suffers a loss through a trauma? Does that tend to be worse than someone like myself that cared for my husband for 8 months and at least had somewhat of a chance to prepare myself?
It's different, totally different. I'm working with a couple widows now that are suicide widows.
Okay, right.
And that's really hard. You want to talk about survivor's guilt. And once they get to the point where they can actually say the S word, that's the point of healing. Just knowing that it wasn't them is the hardest thing to get over. And then there's another woman I'm working with who's had her husband and spouse died in an accident. Her husband and daughter died in an accident together. So, I mean, it's different, but it's still devastating. I had 6 months to care for Dave, and he dotted every I and crossed every T and make sure everything was all set. And it's just different. It's not, you can't compare trauma to being 6 months with someone who's quite ill and is dying in front of your eyes. I remember towards the end, he couldn't swallow. He had esophageal cancer. Right. I followed him around with these little plastic cups because he couldn't even keep water down. And we had to go to the bank and get an account turned over. And it was so painful. The bank manager said, Dave said, I hope you don't mind, but I might get sick. And she bolts out of the chair. She goes, oh, it's not contagious. It's like, no, you can't catch this.
Oh.
So yeah, I think it's different, all kind of different journeys.
Right. Which brings me to another point. To all my listeners out there, don't compare your grief to another's. Everyone grieves differently. Everyone's situation is different. Some are going to be more difficult than others. Some women, whether it's that they're stronger or they just have had a different path than you. Some women will seemingly work through it and boom, bounce back, so to speak, and be doing fine in a very short period of time. Others will take years. You do you, and don't compare your grief. You do what you need to do in your heart. In your heart, you know if it's time, correct?
Yes, I just wrote that down. You do you. That's so important. And just circle around back to, you got me thinking about what my what if was. And I thought, what could I have done? Could I have cooked better? Could I have, cooked healthier? Could I have done something different to have caused Dave to get this horrific cancer? So yeah, it's
right. If. Yeah. And for me, the what if was, what if I had refused that clinical trial? I'm convinced that the last clinical trial he was on made him sicker faster. So that's my what if. What if I had said no to that one? I had said enough. Now we're going to focus on quality of life. That's my what if. And I still think about that what if, but it doesn't cause me to get stuck anymore. One other thing I wanted to touch on before I turn the microphone over to you, Marie. You've mentioned several times that you're a certified functional medicine coach. What is functional medicine?
Functional medicine differs from allopathic medicine, and I'm a perfect example of this. Functional medicine tries to get the root cause of why you have high blood pressure, why you have high cholesterol, why you have autoimmune diseases, why you need antidepressants, why you need hormones. And at the time when Dave died, I was on every prescription known to man. I was pre-diabetic. I was high blood pressure, high cholesterol, hormone therapy, everything you could think of for a woman, I was on. And I started thinking, I'm on all these pills. My mom was too, until she died. I mean, 10, 15 pills a day.
Yeah.
I said, why do I have to be like this? And so I found a functional medicine doctor, and it's the first time in my life he actually sat down and took a family history. And the family history showed autoimmune diseases running rampant. Celiac, Graves' disease, hypothyroidism, breast cancer, ALS, which I didn't know was an autoimmune disease. My brother passed away of that. And so just by changing my food preferences, Kathy, in 6 weeks, I transformed my health.
What?
With functional medicine. I dropped 25 pounds and been carrying around for 30 years. I got off all my meds, reversed my pre-diabetes just by changing my food preferences. And that's why step number 1 is food as medicine.
Wow. That's a whole nother thing that just opened a door in front of me.
Yes.
I don't take a lot of medications for a woman my age, but I mean, I take blood pressure, just got started on cholesterol
Yeah.
medication. But anytime, if you ask my doctor, what's the reason for my problems, it's going to be my weight. That's it,
Yeah.
my weight. And unless I can change that, this is going to be my fate. This is going to be the medicine I'll be on for the rest of my life. Very interesting. I'm going to have to explore that a bit more, I think. I wanted our listeners to know what functional medicine was for many
Yeah.
reasons. Because you have a certification in it, it means you can help. And many times listeners are looking for a resource. So, having said that now, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you, Marie, and let you give a little bit more information to our listeners about the resources you can offer them, the services, and please talk about your upcoming, I think it's still upcoming, retreat in
Yes.
Punta Gorda. I have never seen a retreat that can end with an add-on of shopping. So
I
please
know.
mention that. So microphone is yours.
Thanks, Kathy. Pleasure talking with you today. I wanted to mention that my most rewarding work is when I coach widows one-on-one. It can be tailored. I can help in many, many different ways, including food, nutrition, functional medicine, and I can also help with helping them find new purpose. And I've also become it's kind of funny, a quasi-dating coach, because I hear many widows say, I just feel stuck. And they see Jeff and I, and it's like, I want what you have. And so I've created a boot camp, a workshop called Second Chance at Love. And that's kicking off on September 14th. And it's a 4-week program. And every week will be challenges on how to meet people without going online. So I'm so excited. I've got so many cool things to convey to people. I know. And then I also have the retreat coming up in Punta Gorda. And it's going to be 4 nights, 5 days in a resort called the Solstice. And it's really, really special. I found that, especially with the retreat here in Maine, which just finished last week, it's just an incredible way to make new connections and also, talk about food and talk about healthy eating and, try to convey some of my teachings on, eat organic and, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, which you may have heard of.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, and it's from the Environmental Working Group, and it's something I'm a strong proponent of. You don't have to do everything organic, but don't eat, if you can, try to get organic strawberries and blueberries, the top 2 leading pesticides in the United States. So I coach, I have the dating boot camp coming up, and I have the retreat in Punta Gorda. All of this can be found on my website, mariescottwellness.com, including replays of many other podcasts I've done. So it's so rewarding for me in this life part 2, as I call it, to be able to help other widows and widowers learn to live well through clean eating, laugh more, get your smile back, and to perhaps even find love again.
That's great. There's so many resources that you have available and so many skills you yourself have. Now, are your services as a functional medicine coach, or even maybe as somebody who just needs to turn their life around, are those available to women or men that are not widows or widowers?
So I've been asked that, but my passion and my background is to focus on widows and widowers.
All right.
And that's where I want to stay, because I am one, and I have created a new life, part 2, and I have repartnered and remarried and found the second great love of my life. So I really want to focus on doing that for other widows and widowers.
Understandable. And if I was looking for a coach, I would want one that experienced what I have experienced, or at least as close to that as possible, because it's very difficult. And come on, ladies, we've all experienced with this, trying to tell our male doctor how we feel. And that poor doctor has no idea in the world about how it could possibly feel. So we all know that. So if you can find someone that's gone through it before, that I think really, really resonates. And I think you're halfway there when that happens. Marie is a delightful person, and anyone would be well served by reaching out to her. Boy, I can't do it, but Punta Gorda And then, like I say, just like a cruise ship offers a shore excursion, she's got a couple days added on afterward where she'll take you shopping. You'll all go shopping at the mall and then relax by the pool later. What could be better after a draining retreat? And that's how a retreat should be. It should be draining, yet you should leave inspired. So I will be jealous with any single person that goes to Punta Gorda. Just know that. Well, the time has come to say goodbye for another episode. Marie, it's been so rewarding to have you here, and my life is enriched now by having you in my network. I look forward to finding other opportunities to bring you back as a guest. And did you really mention your 7 steps for healing?
Yes, not yet, but that's also, through my coaching, I touch on all 7 steps. So the private coaching really can be custom tailored to whatever a widow's going through.
Perfect.
And I always talk about food. That's my passion. Perfect. In fact, I've got a cookbook in the works called Cooking with a Side of Kleenex.
Oh, cooking. Say that again.
Cooking with a Side of Kleenex.
Cooking with a Side of Kleenex. What an intriguing title. That's really great. Okay, I digress as always because I just don't want to say goodbye. Goodbyes are really hard for me anyway. Just know that I'll be back again next week. I hope you've enjoyed listening today to Marie. I hope you reach out because I truly think she has a lot to offer each and every one of you. And until next week, my listener friends, take care of yourselves and stay happy, stay healthy, stay well as we all continue to live and grieve.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. Do you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or do you have a question from one of our episodes? Please email us at info@asiliveandgrieve.com and let us know. We hope you will find a moment to leave a review, send an email, and share with others. Join us next time as we continue to live and grieve together.